It is just as important for Americans to honor veterans at every given chance as it is for veterans to demonstrate the way they live and provide for others. Thank you.
So her incentive is being presented by Command Sergeant Major Barry Donahue.
Hey, great job, Hannah. There were 4 contestants, and Hannah it was very close, but Hannah was the clear winner. I'm Barry Donahue, I'm the commander for the VFW over here in Saxonburg, and we sponsor this every year. The VFW, just for especially the juniors, we're going to offer a scholarship. It's actually starting this year, but in order to be eligible for the scholarship, you have to write a Voice of Democracy paper. Okay, so we had 2 people that are seniors that wrote a paper this year, and they're going to be eligible for a scholarship. So just kind of think about that for next year. But anyways, Hannah, you did a great job. And on behalf of the VFW, I want to give you a check for first place for $500.
Our next veteran is Chief Petty Officer John Epley, who was born in Johnstown and raised in Sidmond, Pennsylvania. He decided to join the Coast Guard because one of his family members was in it and talked about how much he loved it. That was enough to convince him, and he enlisted on May 18, 1987, and retired in 2007. He did his basic training at the Coast Guard Training Center in Cape May, New Jersey. While in the Coast Guard, he transferred every 4 years, but his main job was a combination of dealing with personnel, administration, and government housing issues.
How you doing this morning? I need to stand up, my knees aren't the greatest. I was asked to wear my uniform, and I just turned 65, and I'm sucking it in a little bit, just trying to fit in here. But I thank you for having this. This is great, especially for you young kids to see all this. One thing I do got to say, I agree with the rest of my fellow veterans here, is only 1% American citizens serve in the military. So think about it. It brings you nothing but honor, integrity, and just a general loving of your country. You know, serve your country, that's the best thing you can do. When I joined, these are pictures here. This is actually in Sandy Hook, New Jersey. I made Chief Petty Officer there. We just went through what they call CCTI. It was Chief's Call to Initiation. In other words, they kind of beat us up a little bit. I got stuck in a wood coffin with a hole in it, and full of ice and cat food and stuff. And the judge would say, every time you hear a certain word, you got to light a match and hold it up and go, yada, yada, yada. So after about the 4th time, getting ice water dumped on me. They finally let me out. But afterwards, it was a great dinner for all the new Chief Petty Officers and those current ones. And we had a great dinner at the New York Athletic Club. It was right up in downtown New York. We got to walk around Times Square and everything. It was a fantastic evening with a bunch of shipmates. I joined in 1987. I went to boot camp in Cape May from May of '87 to July. You're kind of like in Vietnam, you're down around the sand, you're dealing with mosquitoes and biting gnats and sand fleas. and about every other biting bug that you can find. But it was a fantastic experience. I learned a lot. And I went to my first unit in Upper Chesapeake Bay. That was our area of operation, Chesapeake Bay, Chesapeake and Delaware Canal. And my very first patrol was a night patrol. And we had a list of vessels that you needed to look for that were suspected of smuggling drugs. And we saw this sailboat going by. It had no lights on. And we saw the name in the back, and guess what? It's on the list. So we stopped. We pulled them aside. We tied them up. And the other guys, they went on board and started searching. They had 4 crew members. They're some pretty sully looking guys. You know, they were pretty rough looking. And I'm standing on deck. I'm not yet qualified to board another vessel. I'm standing there at M16 going, oh my God, I have to shoot somebody. Thank God I didn't have to. You know, they didn't find any drugs, although we didn't have the means to test. But that was the Coast Guard's main job, is search and rescue, drug interdiction, and maritime law enforcement. And I had the great privilege of serving at that unit for a year and a half. We also, what we did is we maintained the aids of navigation. Those are the big buoys. You guys, you see the lights are flashing on the water. Well, a buoy in the Upper Chesapeake Bay, it stood probably about as high as this board up here. And every once in a while the lights would go out. We had to do what they call a hot packet. We had to take a car battery and we would hot pack it on there and change light bulbs and everything. But guess what? When you're up there and the waves come, you're like this. So every once in a while, you see this big boat coming up through and they're flying up, causing the big waves. Everybody on the boat's going like this. They're going, oh, Coast Guard's waving at us. And guess what? You're hanging on for dear life and you're banging like this. But it's a great experience. I went to, after that, I went to Coast Guard Training Center in Petaluma, California. It's about an hour north of San Francisco. And that's where I learned my main job in the Coast Guard. I wasn't too far from Bodega Bay, California. That's where, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the movie The Birds. That's where that was filmed. And also about 20 minutes from Napa Valley, which was a beautiful country out there. After that, I wound up going to Cape May, New Jersey again for my regular job. And I was there for 4 years. And it was nice again, the sand fleas and the mosquitoes and everything. And then after that, I wound up going to the Coast Guard Academy. Now, the Coast Guard Academy is a unique one. That's where they train all the Coast Guard's officers. And there's a unique vessel that is there at the Coast Guard Academy. It's called the Coast Guard Cutter Eagle. And it's a sailing vessel. And believe it or not, it was a sailing vessel. It used to be called the Horst Wessel. And what this was a prize from the German Navy at the end of World War II. It was given to the Coast Guard as a war prize. And that's what they train the Coast Guard's cadets on. And it is a fantastic vessel, so much history that I got to go on board her a few times. And they sail all over the world with the cadets. Now, the Coast Guard Academy is the only academy, service academy, that does not require congressional appointment. So any of you kids, if you have the academic ability and apply for the Coast Guard Academy, you can get in there. And you can have a great military career as a Coast Guard officer. So, what do you think about that? I know I'm doing a recruiting pitch, but I can't really. But after that, I wound up in Louisville, Kentucky. And everybody, I got to meet Jeff Foxworthy there. Anybody know who Jeff Foxworthy is? He's the guy that, you might be a granddad, kid. I got to meet him, and he asked me, he says, what's the Coast Guard doing in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, the Ohio River has a lot of barge traffic. You know, we got to respond to things like we had a 32,000 gallon gasoline spill. There was a tug that lost power, and the current took it down and hit one of the pilings on the I-65 bridge, and it sank. Coal barges breaking loose and sinking, catching on fire, all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, so it was kind of exciting to see that. But after Louisville, Kentucky, I had a chance. I was just telling my good friend here, I had a chance to go to Honolulu. My wife said no. But I wound up going to Sandy Hook, New Jersey. And Sandy Hook, New Jersey, if anybody looks at the map of New Jersey, there's a little peninsula on the eastern shore of it that's pointing straight to New York. Well, I got to Sandy Hook, New Jersey in June of 2001, just in time for 9/11. On September 11th, I go to work, and all of a sudden there's people running around. They said a plane just flew under the Trade Center. And all the smoke from the Trade Center, I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, and all the smoke was drifting down right over our base. And within 6 hours, they had everything closed. All the air traffic for Kennedy and LaGuardia was shut down. F-16s, F-22s flying around all over the place. Within 6 hours, the Army had ground-to-air missiles placed strategically on Sandy Hook because it was a national park. And we had 115 actual personnel on base with 5 mobile units. Well, in the space of 6 hours, we had 11 cutters. That's the Coast Guard ships. And an extra 275 personnel coming on base. And the Coast Guard Admiral, he was a one-star admiral and his wife. They were on leave down in Washington, D.C., and they were trying to get up to New York because he was in command of the Coast Guard base. Well, the law enforcement had shut down everything along the New Jersey border, and they couldn't get through. So they came up to our base. So they had a small boat station there, and they took the admiral and his wife up to Staten Island via water. And I'm standing there, and my boss, he was the lieutenant commander, he looks at me and says, "Chief," and I knew he was coming. I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "See the admiral's car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I need you to get up to New York today." And it's the first time I ever said this to an officer, and the only time I ever said this to an officer was, "Begging your pardon, sir, but are you nuts?" He started laughing. He says, "No, I'm not, Chief. I'm not, Chief." And I said, "Aye, aye, sir." But we had gunner's mates. Gunner's mates are the guys that handle all the weapons, and they train all the people with weapons. And we had a firing range on the base that we trained Coast Guard personnel in the 3-state area. Well, I called them, and they had a siren and lights on the Coast Guard truck, and with the Coast Guard on it. And I'm behind him in the admiral's car. He had a blue Coast Guard sticker and a blue flag with the white star denoting his rank. And we strapped on our weapons, grabbed our radios, and we headed up to New York. Well, these guys, they were in a big SUV. And I don't know why an admiral can afford a lot. And there I am driving a crappy little Jeep Cherokee with a 6-cylinder engine. And we took a turn, and I swear I took one turn on 2 wheels. And I called him, I said, "You guys gotta slow down." He said, "Why?" I said, I almost tipped the admiral's car. I said, "I can't wreck an admiral's vehicle. I'm not gonna be in the Coast Guard anymore." But we made it up there. I parked the admiral's car in his garage, and they said, "Let's go up to Bayonne." Well, we just made it up to Bayonne, and it was right across the water from the Twin Towers, and it was right after the second tower came down. And we had a lot of smoke, a lot of debris going up into the air, and believe it or not, it was one of the saddest sights you've ever seen. And in the months coming after that, where I was at, we had a lot of the train stations. A lot of the people that worked at the World Trade Centers lived in the northern New Jersey area. And you could tell all the cars that belonged to these people that got killed in the World Trade Centers, you could see pieces of paper on the windshield of cars that weren't claimed, that needed to be claimed by the vehicles, by the families. And we did a fundraiser for the families of those people who lost their lives. And it was hard to see little kids, like you guys, not having a family anymore. I'm sorry, it cracks me up sometimes, it breaks me up sometimes. After seeing all that, you know. And I know, you know, you in Vietnam, you've seen all that stuff, World War II, everybody's seen all that stuff. I never saw a war before. And it was really heartbreaking to see that. But through all that, we had guys from the Navy League, they kept coming and doing things with us. The Coast Guard base, we never shut down. I was put in charge of all the armed guards at the gates, because before our gates were open, anybody could come on. Not after that. We had to make sure everybody was trained, and I had to make sure everybody was trained on weapons, guarding the gates at all times, 24/7. We did that for 3 months. And that was all the cutters. I was in charge of all the housing. I had people coming in with just shirts on their backs, no orders, no way of paying for food, nowhere to sleep. So we found everything, and folks like you donated everything, all kinds of stuff. I was getting 2-3 truckloads a day just of donated goods just coming in. And it was heartening to see everybody in this nation come together. Now don't forget, with all the division we see in this country today, just think what would happen if something like that happened to us again. We'd all come back together. We're Americans first. And for all these folks that served here, they gave their best. And I'd like to see you guys do all that too. Do what you can do and be the best you can be. And that's all I want to do.
Thank you, Chief Petty Officer Epley. Our next veteran is Corporal Bill Bowser, who is originally from East Brady, Pennsylvania. Corporal Bowser has a long line of service members in his family, which is initially what interested him in joining the military. Originally, he looked to joining the Navy, but chose the Marine Corps instead. But I'll save the rest of that story for him to elaborate on. He was just 17 years old and in his junior year of high school when he made this decision and received his basic training on Parris Island in South Carolina. He proudly served his country as a combat engineer from 1990 to 1994. Take it away, Corporal Bowser.
Thank you, Lauren. Morning, guys, girls. I remember, it seemed like forever ago, sitting in the same seat you guys are sitting. I actually went to Knoch up until 7th grade, and then I moved back to East Brady and grew up there. Sitting back and seeing your faces, thinking back to one day I looked that young. But yeah, my family, there was a long list of military men. My dad, my uncles, all my uncles served in the Army, Air Force. My dad was in the Navy. I had one uncle that served in the Marine Corps, and I never knew that until he passed because he never spoke about it. He was actually received his Purple Heart in Iwo Jima back in the day, so that was part of my history. So one of the reasons I joined, I took the ASVAB to join the Navy. And when I went to take the test, they said I qualified for the nuclear power program. If I scored high enough on the test, I could have went into the nuclear power program, and I asked what all that entailed. And his sales pitch was, well, you get to be on a submarine. And I said, okay, I'll talk to you later, and no thanks. I won't elaborate on what else I said to him, that's for another time. As I was walking out, I heard a gentleman in the next room chuckling about what I had told him. And I stopped in, and this guy said, well, sit down, son, I want to talk to you. And I sat down and talked to that man for about 2 hours. And after that 2-hour speech with Staff Sergeant David Shahan of the United States Marine Corps, I called my mother, who worked at the mushroom mines at the time, and said, Mom, I'm joining the Marine Corps. She said, you're 17, your junior year, give it another year to think about it. I said, Mom, I'm joining the Marine Corps, I'm signing the papers today, if you know. But I need you to sign the papers so that I can sign the papers. I wasn't allowed to sign since I was 17. So that's when I did that. I spent a year on the delayed entry program before I went into, once I graduated high school in June of 90, I went to boot camp after that. Boot camp Paris Island. And my other gentleman said, I wish I'd thought about that because I went in July, August, and September in North Carolina, or South Carolina. Not the best choice. Very, very warm. Very hot. And San Feliz love to eat human beings. They're a little flea about this big with teeth about that long. And it hurts. Got out of boot camp, ended up at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, for my infantry school, which was a 4-week course, just teaching the basics of infantry. After that, I went to combat engineer school at also Camp Lejeune, a place called Courthouse Bay, in the middle of nowhere. Learned how to run all kind of heavy equipment, bulldozers, road graders, excavators, cranes, you name it, I could run it. From there, I got stationed in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. Yeah, it was rough, but I sucked it up and I went. And once there, while we were in engineer school, is when the initial Desert Storm kicked off. We had heard they had bombed Baghdad, and we thought, oh boy, here we go. So that's what they told us. They were going to accelerate our training, and we were going to go over to Kuwait. But it didn't accelerate our training. We were almost finished with our schooling anyhow, so we just went on to our duty stations. Got to Kaneohe Bay, and they decided to put a detachment together for my unit to go over and stand as a security detachment and guard the bases over there and take, resupply missions and things like that. Well, I got chosen for I didn't get chosen to go. I had a friend of mine who I made friends with when I first got there. His name was Corporal John Jerebeck. I remember him to this day. He had just gotten married and just had a baby, and he was like, I just got back from over there. I'm really not keen on going back over. So I went to the post commander, to my company gunnery sergeant. I said, Gunny, I said, look, I said, Jerebeck just got back. I said, I'm here. This is what I signed up for. I said, can't do something about putting my name on to take his place. So that's what they did. They put me in place of him to go over there so he could be with his family. I thought that was just something I needed to do. So went over there, spent time, standing guard duty. Never had any too close of calls. I was telling Staff Sergeant here earlier, we were out one night on post in a particularly remote area, ammo supply point 2, just north of nowhere in Saudi Arabia. And we're sitting there, it was the middle of the night, real quiet, had been quiet for months. And all of a sudden we're with our night vision goggles and we're scanning the horizon. Little green blips start coming up on the horizon. There's 15, we're counting 20. I said, oh boy, we're in trouble, we got somebody coming in. So it was coming from the north, where Kuwait, you could actually see the glow from the oil fires where we were. And we called the corporal to guard out, and they come out, sergeant guard, they all come out. We went out in front of them, it was a camel herder bringing his camels through the desert in the middle of the night. I said, you have no idea how close you came, buddy, to having a camel herder. It was like, they were ready to light them up. But after that, got back from there. Then in 1992, a hurricane hit Hawaii. We were It was pretty bad. It hit Oahu, or it did not hit Oahu as bad as it hit Kauai and some of the other islands. They put together another group and we went over there and we cleaned up and provided humanitarian aid for them over there. Just things like that, you know, it's the stuff you get to see, the stuff you get to do, and the places you get to go if you join the military. Because like I said, college wasn't for me. I'm in the middle of 7 children and college just wasn't in the books. I wasn't a motivated student, so I knew that I wanted to do something. Because growing up in East Brady, if any of you know where East Brady is, does anybody know where East Brady is? Pretty small town, not much there. So I figured it was either stick there and be swallowed up by the culture there, or get out of town and try to do something with my life. So that's what I did. Now I currently reside in Sawyer, married, 2 kids. I work at the mill. I've been up there for 24 years, and I owe a lot of that to things I learned in the military, just discipline and how to keep yourself on track and all that. I moved around a lot. I used to live on Burton Street for a while. I grew up in Brady's Bend, up Cove Run Hollow. Yeah. What's that? Oh, yeah, it's a nice place up there. It's, you're right up by Phillipston there. But yeah, just like I said, it's a sense of pride. It's one of the things I'm very most proud of was joining the military, because I had a lot of people back then telling me I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it in the Marine Corps. I couldn't cut it. I wasn't disciplined enough. And just to let you know that each and every one of you sitting in that chair has the ability to do whatever you put your mind to. And not to be corny and quote John F. Kennedy, but at this point it's not to ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And one of the best things you can do for your country is serve it with honor, serve it with pride, serve it with dignity. And just do the best that you can do with what you've been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Corporal Donaldson. Our next veteran is Staff Sergeant James Pratty, who is originally from Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. After graduating from Slippery Rock High School, he decided to work in construction and did a few other odd jobs before deciding to join the Air Force in 1998, when he was 22 years old. Since many of his family members also served in the military, he decided to join the Air Force based on their recommendations. After completing his basic training in San Antonio, Texas at Lackland Air Force Base, he completed several orders, including serving at Andrews Air Force Base and on Air Force One between 2002 and 2006.
Well, joining the Air Force was at the suggestion of many of my family members and individuals that I knew. And I didn't take the normal path. I was 22 years old when I joined. I wasn't really crazy about college when I got out of high school, and I thought that it was for people that really didn't know how to use their hands or couldn't build it. So I started building houses, I excavated, I drove a truck, and all the while I've been dating my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. And when she graduated, she was a little bit behind me in school. She was in Clarion and at university there, and we were trying to decide what we were going to do with our lives. We were young kids. We kind of had a plan, but we didn't really know how we were going to go into adulthood and what we were going to do. So as we discussed it, we felt as though that the best course of action would be for me to join the military, and you know that there was good training there were opportunities for us, and outside of that, I didn't really know. Everything that I've done in my life, I've always just kind of worked myself into it. And so I joined the Air Force. I left in the spring, in March of '98, which wasn't too bad in San Antonio at that time. After basic training, I had tech school there as well. So tech school for a cop was actually harder than basic training, and it was getting really hot. It was a huge facility. There was an awful lot going on there. Ironically, we called the place that we stayed in tech school the jailhouse, because it had bars all over it. We were all there to train as cops, but we felt like we were in jail. And it was a unique experience. I think everybody remembers their time in basic training and their technical training with a little bit of fondness. And I'll never forget my first night in basic training. There was Airman Boggs was his name. He was from West Virginia. He sounded like he was from Louisiana. He had the deepest drawl you've ever heard in your life. And he had this scared look in his eyes. And this little skinny senior airman was who picked us up from the buses and was screaming at the top of his lungs. I wasn't too worried about it, but you had to get off the bus, go in, shower, and shave. And so I'm, kind of shaving up there, and this guy is screaming at the top of his lungs. And Airman Boggs is beside me, and I see him pick up a razor. His hands are going like this. This isn't going to be good. Well, the guy started screaming at him, and says, "Get out of my bathroom, shave, do whatever you're going to." Well, this young guy starts pawing at his face. I mean, he looked like he was scraping a windshield. And there is blood everywhere. It looked like it looked like a slaughterhouse in there from this poor young man. And I finished up, and as I'm walking back to my bed, this is my very first night in the Air Force, I see him laying in bed at attention with bloody toilet paper all over his face. And I thought, what did I do? I cannot believe that I voluntarily joined up for this. Well, it was good training. I had really good experiences. And when I was in tech school, I heard that we were going to the day room. Go to the day room, you'll get your orders to your first base. I was really excited about it. You find out where you're going. And they read my name off. Craddock, Malmstrom Air Force Base. I'm like, Malmstrom, that sounds German. I'm going to Germany. And I looked down the sheet, I'm like, that's in Great Falls, Montana. What is there? So I ended up in Great Falls, Montana. I came home. My wife and I were married, and we went on a honeymoon. And then, 2 weeks later, we were in Montana. And I started my work there, and I had planned on being kind of a traditional cop. I thought I'd be in a patrol car. I thought I'd be, reading people their rights. And I had aspirations of being a state police officer after I got out of the Air Force, so this was going to be my segue into that. It was very different. I was assigned to nuclear missile field security. That's the bottom picture here is what an intercontinental ballistic missile site looks like in the middle of Montana. This is Dry Enough Level, and it's just this little acre of ground fenced off with a couple of concrete lids and a white pole. Little would you know that 90 feet below the ground is one of the most destructive forces that